They said the cat have 9 lives, and I think that's really true because it's one of those lunch boxes. I don't know if you remember those plastic lunch boxes.
Yes.
And we were just playing, and I thought it was just okay. I locked the cat there for 2 days, and when I opened it, he just ran out.
Welcome to the Immigrant Experience in America, an immigrant human library, where we amplify and humanize the experiences of immigrants in the United States and around the world. Listen in as we add another story to our immigrant human library.
Hello, listeners, and thanks for joining us on another episode of the Immigrant Experience in America, where we amplify and humanize the experiences of immigrants living in the United States and around the world. This is the place where you come to share your story of arrival to the United States or moving from your birth country to any other country around the world. Today, we have another story that we're adding to our Immigrant Human Library, and it is that of Nadine Johnson. Welcome, Nadine.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Very good. It's nice to have you on the show. And if you guys don't know, this is my sister. People say we look alike. They mistake us all the time on my campus. People would always say hi to her thinking it was me and so forth. People
Yeah,
say
I
we
had
look
a
very
lady
much.
hug me up once thinking it was you.
You're right. Right.
She
So
ran
we
and
get
grabbed me from behind.
Yes, but we're 2 years apart, and Nadine has lived a number of years in the state of Georgia, and she's here to share a bit about her professional life, her immigrant story, and what she's been doing in the last number of years. So Nadine, go ahead and give us a little bit intro into who you are and introduce yourself to our audience.
Again, my name is Nadine Johnson. I was born and raised in Westmoreland, Jamaica, and migrated to the United States at the age of 17.
What has it been like? Do you remember those early days? What was it like when you first left Jamaica, when you were planning to leave? Can you tell us about, what were some hopes that you have as you were preparing to leave the island?
Well, I was very excited to be able to migrate to the United States. I actually leave 2 months after graduating from high school at 17 years old.
So you were telling us a little bit about what it was like as you were getting ready to leave Jamaica to migrate to the United States. What was it like? You were saying you were leaving high school?
Yeah, I graduated in high school. I believe it was the end of June, and I migrated to the United States in August 18, 1998. So I had exciting for me, but still sad at the same time that I was leaving my country behind. All the fun times I had, my friends, fun days at school, coming to a new environment that I wasn't sure what to expect.
Right, I can just imagine. Yeah, I had some of those mixed emotions as well. I had just graduated high school myself, and I think I did a year at the extension school and then left afterwards. So I was excited. Yeah, I remember having conversations with our brother Andres about starting a Jamaican restaurant. I don't know where we got the concept that there was a lot of Jamaican restaurant here, but we were laughing and at that young age talking about how we're gonna start this Jamaican restaurant called Nyam Nyam. And we would just laugh and talk about
Yeah,
all sorts of stories.
yeah.
Yes, I remember very clearly. So tell us a bit, what was it like then as you got on that plane for the first time and when you finally got here to the US, what was it like?
Well, we came in the middle of summer, so it was very hot as I can remember. But when I got here, I realized a lot of people stayed inside. I was used to being outside, have our doors open. We would go outside and play. You would see the neighbors, people playing music, your next door neighbors. But here, everyone stayed inside. It stayed closing. So that was a lot different.
And what was that first winter like?
Oh, yeah. I was excited for the winter because I've never experienced snow before. So I was excited to see it, what it was like. But after that first year, I wasn't, I was ready to move on to a different climate.
Right. Yes, I can
Yeah.
remember crying. I remember crying and people, cousins asking me why I was crying. I don't even know if I could explain, but it was quite that level of cold we've never experienced before. And just the change, the place was different.
Yeah, because for me, every December, it seemed like I was more like, I wouldn't say depressed, but it was very hard to get through the winter. Your focus wasn't there. I just felt like it was just cold and dark. So that was a hard time for me to stay focused.
Right, yes. They have something out there that they call seasonal depression, like in the winter time.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people get, their bodies change and emotions change because of how dark the season is. It's not a lot of light. And then the cold keep you inside the house. So,
Yeah.
yeah, a lot of people get affected by that. I've had my issues with that too. So I'm wondering, can you tell us about what it was like in Jamaica for you growing up?
For me, growing up in Jamaica, I had a very exciting childhood. Lots of memories. Even now, at times, I would sit and I would remember the things I used to do as a child. I did not grow up in the city. I grew up in the countryside of Jamaica. So we had lots of time outside playing with the neighbors. All the kids would come to our homes. We would find different games to play. We would go over to their homes, and it was just family oriented. Everyone know each other. We got along very well. So I enjoyed those days.
Right. I remember, and today I think there's stories that we all have where we joke of stuff that we used to do, like, the cat story, or like we call it the puss story. So my
Or me
sister-in-law,
being a nurse.
yes, Nadine used to be the nurse, right? So we would play these games, and once she actually locked a cat in one of our little lunch pans, and
Yeah, I had a
no,
lot of
we were so
stories of
young.
them.
We didn't know what was going to happen. We were just honestly just innocently playing. And then when we finally let the cat out, it was like soaking wet
It
because it
was a
was
few
locked.
days. I think it was 2 days. So actually, they said the cat have 9 lives, and I think that's really true because it's one of those lunch boxes. I don't know if you remember those plastic lunch boxes.
Yes.
And we were just playing, and I thought it was just okay. I locked the cat there for 2 days, and when I opened it, he just ran out.
My gosh. Oh, yeah. And we were just, yeah, I didn't even think about it. I don't think any of us thought that that was dangerous. We could have easily killed a cat. I
Yeah.
think we were just playing around. But we
Mhm.
joke about those stories all the time, guys. This is what it was like. Just very simple, lots of green around us, lots of trees. Most people there had a lot of land, and they would come to our house to play in the evenings after dinner. And so we didn't know any better. We were just kids. We were just happy and
Yeah, it was very
um
enjoyable. Sometimes I think about my children. They would never know what it's like, that kind of fun we had growing up, because it's so different here. They stay inside all the time. Now they just want to play in their electronics. And
yes, right,
that's
right,
their
right.
kind of fun right now.
Right. And so you wonder what they will share with their kids. And we do our best to take them back to the island, right, and expose them to our family property and tell them stories and show them around so that they can
Mhm.
can grow to love that place like we do.
Yeah, and actually, Ate likes outside so much, but
Mhm.
when we do take him, he just dive into it.
I think
Oh,
your daughter has her own love for it. She's curious, and I see her as a very open-minded person. I think they each have their own love every time we go
yeah,
back. I know
for
she loves
different,
the
yeah, different
beaches
things.
and the hotels, and she's intrigued by just life outside of the resort. So it'll be interesting to see where Jamaica stands with them as they get older, right? So it's to be seen. I think everybody raising children away from the place where they were born and raised wonder, like what would their children, what kind of love their children will grow up to have for their birth country. So it's
Yeah,
to be seen.
I often think about that. I came across a video once. We do speak English, but we also have patois. And I will speak it to them sometime. They will understand what I'm saying, but they will not speak it. So I came across a video once that said, when you lose the language, you lose your culture.
Mhm.
So, when when your family move away and the children come and they don't really speak the language you speak, their culture fades away. No.
Right. Yeah. No, it's funny because it's funny you mentioned that. I just came back from the island for my birthday, and I've been going through this thing. I call it returning, where I recognize, because I've tried to assimilate or become just to fit in here in the US, in certain spaces, whether it's at job or socially, just, speak more American so people will understand you more. Because I remember people saying that, they had trouble understanding my accent, or you would hear conversations about people saying that. And so over time, you just naturally just try to speak in a way where people can easily understand you, and you can just really not stand out so much, and you just kind of flow with the environment you're in. But I really have lost my thick Jamaican accent. It comes out sometimes when I'm there, but it doesn't come easily all the time. I was listening to a program this week and listened to the lady and her accent, and I was just so saddened by the fact that I don't sound like that anymore. Oh my gosh. And I
I
find myself
believe I
like,
still have mine. It's still very strong because, a lot of
yeah,
times people will meet me and just like, oh my goodness, how long have you been here? You still have such a strong accent. They will meet people that came here after me, but maybe because I grew up more in the country, a lot of people migrated from Kingston. So if somebody hear both of us talking together, they could hear my accent very strong.
yes. And plus I've kind of traveled and lived in different places, as you've known. So I've had to kind of adapt the way I talk. I really don't know exactly what I sound like anymore, but I went through this thing where I feel like I'm mourning the loss of having that sound that Jamaica has. Some people will say, "Oh, your Jamaican accent isn't there anymore." But then even when the way I speak right now, they will still ask me first thing out of their mouth, "Where are you from?" So they
Yeah,
can
they could
tell I'm
still
not
hear the
natively
difference.
from
Yeah.
here, that I'm from
Same,
somewhere.
same
And
thing when we
so,
visit home, people know that we wasn't living there. Even though we still
exactly.
talk the patois, they hear, okay, she has been somewhere. She hasn't been on the island for a while.
Yes, exactly. And it's kind of part of the immigrant experience, is that you move to this country and you're trying to assimilate and to fit in to a place that you're not native to, because you have to survive. And this is can be a harsh environment for immigrants, right? Once you stick out like a sore thumb with an accent, the way you vibe and move, people can tell you're not from here. So you try to really just fit in. And
Yeah,
then on the other side, the more you try to assimilate, you lose a lot of
yeah,
your birth country, the culture, and understanding how people move and communicate. Because so when I go back, I remember just staying quiet when I was around certain people and letting them talk to communicate to the vendors or whoever, because I felt like they could get across and get a better price. No
yeah,
matter how I try
yeah,
to
it
speak
is true.
Jamaican, it's gonna sound
They will
different.
overcharge you when they know that you're not from there. You haven't been there for a while, so you don't quite know how much the prices are. They will overcharge you.
Right, right. Yeah, yeah. So I'm going through a period where I'm trying to return to my roots. This Immigrant Experience podcast is actually helping me work through that. I went back to what we call a mango walk or mango
Oh
picking,
yeah,
because it was
that
mango
sounds
season.
fun. Mhm.
Oh my gosh,
Yeah,
I'm
I
sitting here.
often sit and think about, when we used to go to the hills with my grandmother. I
Yes.
think I would enjoy. In those days, I did not enjoy it so much, but now I would just love to go back and just do those things for,
Yeah, I have those
just
memories too,
just
very
be there
vividly.
and go up in the hills and enjoy the fresh air and
Hmm. And all that property that the family has on our paternal and side and on our mother's side. And then, you come here, and part of the adjustment is that you have to buy land that is so expensive, right? And then we have so much land, but because it's on the interior of the land of the island, the property values vary on, depending on its location. And so you go back and see all this land and you're like, man, but you're here,
yeah.
and people would probably say, different social status, because we've left all of that to come here and start over. But,
Mhm.
that's another story. So that's part of the immigrant experience. I'm wondering, Nadine, if you can tell us about some fun things that you used to do. Like what was your experience of the food and memories that you have when you were growing up?
Well, growing up in Jamaica, I must say, we have a lot of fruit trees. We have, as one thing finish, there's a season for everything. We had June plum, we had lots of oranges, coconut, sugar cane. So there was never a time that we could say, "Oh, I'm hungry," because it was just so much things that we could go. Fresh food. Every day we would have some fresh cooked food. And I miss
Yes.
those days. Coming home, coming home from school, we would have dinner ready for us. And just like I said, being out, just an open environment where everybody just get along very well. Your neighbors, we play together as kids. We have live music. Well, I didn't really dance, but it was just a fun time.
Yeah, and it was so safe. The
Yeah, it
way
was
we
very safe. And then,
Mhm.
if I'm not wanting to, I remember if our parents had to go somewhere, it was no problem. We could always go over to our neighbors and they could come over to our house and stay until their parents come back. We could play all day.
Yes, so part of the immigrant mom experience where you're raising children in a new country, different from the one in which you were born and raised, and you
Mm-hmm.
obviously have a culture, you go through this back and forth of deciding, like, what values do you now create in your children? How much of your culture do you try to make sure you instill in them? What do of the new culture do you try to keep out, and just try to keep a balance because this is their reality.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it's a constant thing on my mind, like who will my daughter become, like, and I hope she learns to appreciate our country, our culture, where we come from. They all have been there a number of times now, and I just want to make sure that she knows that that is home. We have roots going back a number of generations, at least four that I've tracked, and it goes back even further.
Mm-hmm.
So, I remember telling her constantly, remember, this is home. You can always come home, because we don't want them to get lost here where they feel like they're going to be treated like they're outsiders or that they're aliens. I
Yeah,
know they were
sometimes
born
I kind
here.
of feel sad about that. Like, if anything should happen to me and then they leave here and they will never go back, and then they grew up and have children, and then that roots is just lost. It just fade away.
I know. So the reality of both of us being mothers, the
Mhm.
children just came from the pool and trying to keep the noise down while we both continue the interview. But this is the reality of life, of motherhood, right? We try to grow ourselves, do things that bring us joy in the middle of being mothers and in the middle of having full-time jobs. I mean, this is the reality. This is
Mhm.
real. So they came up here, they're gone. Hopefully they can change and not create too much
Mhm.
ruckus. Right. Yeah. So that's part of the whole immigrant experience is,
Yeah,
raising children
and
and
now
trying
that
to
you
figure it
mentioned
out.
that too about working full time, that was another thing about being back home, because a lot of mothers didn't work. I think now more women are working, but the woman would stay home and take care of the children. So when they're home from school, their mom is home, dinner is ready, they could do things together. But here, you have to work all day. Maybe you have to find a babysitter, aftercare, so you could finish work. So it's like you spend a lot of time away from them. Most of your time is spent in working.
Right. Yeah, no, I remember when we were growing up, we were with both sides of our families, and a lot of time was spent at home, and grandma was always there. Yes,
Mhm.
our dad and mom were off working, but then they would come, but we had our aunts. It was more of like a
Yeah, there was
community. We had a
always
lot of
somebody there. Yeah, some family member would always be there.
Yeah, to see about us. And
Mhm.
so, yeah, our children are growing up into this new industrialized world where work is so important. It takes more than one person now to work, like two people to work and maintain the finances in the home. So it's a different world.
Mhm.
And I don't know, I find that I'm really tossed between wanting to go back home, like literally, I'm having a deep like desire to move back so my daughter can exchange experience Jamaica and to kind of grow to love it. And so
Mm-hmm.
she will develop the language, and so that I can return to getting my accent back. Because I feel like that's who I am, the older I get, I just realize that I'm Jamaican. Being Jamaican is like a deep part of who I am. It's the way I eat, the way I cook, my favorite things, the way I think is very communal or collectivist in
Yep. And
nature.
the way you are, the person you are, I think that has a lot to do with it. Because we spent, well, all of our childhood years, so we were groomed already into what we want to be when we grew up. Working
Yes.
hard, our morals was already there.
Hmm.
So that helps us when we move to the United States.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes. And I know we've been here now over 2 decades, but that part of you is, it was already set, I think. We've changed. I think we both have changed and taken on things that are very American in nature, but I think our culture at home in the way we eat and the way we deal with people is still very Jamaican. And I've changed. There's things about me that people would consider Jamaican that's no longer there. I've just been gone for a while.
Mm-hmm.
But any case, I'm going through a season where I'm mourning the loss of that, my cultural self. But that's
Yeah.
another conversation. Loss of my accent and my cultural self, and
Mm-hmm.
who I'm going to become in the next decade or so. Am I going to go back, or am I going to stay here and continue to change and lose part of that of who I am? So yeah, we'll work that out. Yeah, so I've shared a lot about our family story. I think our audience already know a bit about our background. I have a story that's going to be released here shortly from my story with reporting with StoryCorps, which is an organization that goes around and interview everyday Americans who are living here, and they store it in the Library of Congress for people to do research in years to come to kind of get a sense for what life was like during this time, whether you are natively born here or you are somebody who immigrated from another country, right? They record all of these stories for people to talk about what life is like during this time of period. And I
Oh,
just did that. And so that will be coming out. So people will get a background about our family life. And so we won't go into that too much today. So I wonder, when you first came, Nadine, like, and started adjusting, like going off to school and then having a part-time job, which we never had to do because, family, our dad took care of everything. Our dad and mom took care of everything. We didn't have to think about working at 16. I mean, my niece, your
yeah, I
daughter
was
is now talking about
17.
going out to work at 16. We never even thought about that.
Yeah, we never at those time. I mean, it's funny, she's 14 years old and she's already looking at she's wanna go work. You know, when I was home, when I was 14 years old, I wasn't even thinking about having a job.
Right.
But it's so I migrated here, I finished high school in Jamaica, but because of the changes, I had to go back to high school for 1 year. Possibly I could have just gone on to college, but because that was 11th grade in Jamaica and high school goes to 12th grade here, so I did went back to high school for 1 year. Yeah, it was it was kind of hard adjusting because things here were a lot different than back home. It was very easy communicating with my friends over there, because we could just speak our own language, or we speak English as our native language, but we could just have speak the broken language quickly to someone. But being here, it was very different. The minute you open your mouth and say something, that everybody was like, "Well, what did you say? Could you say that again? Where are you from?" And I was very afraid. I remember I had a public speaking class that was part of my curriculum. And I failed that class because I wouldn't go up and give my speech when it was time for me. I was just afraid to go in front of the class and speak.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that is kind of I think that was not something we had to do on a regular basis in Jamaica in high school. I don't
Mm-hmm.
remember having to give a lot of presentations at all, if any. So that
No.
wasn't something that we had to do. That was just not we studied and we were smart kids, but giving presentations was just not something that we did. So this was new, and I struggled with that
Yeah,
too.
and even if we had to, it was very comfortable. You know, at some point, the teacher may call on you to give an answer or come up in front of the class. But because here it's so different, you're new, your accent is different, everyone is looking at you, you know, it's just a lot different. So that puts some pressure on you going in front of the class to speak.
Right, right, right. So you finished high school and went on to college.
Yeah, community
And
college. Mhm.
right. Yeah, did you? I thought you went to DeVry, right? You got your
Yeah, I finished at DeVry, but I started with Penn Valley. Remember Penn Valley, North Kansas
okay, so
City?
you did a little you
Two
did some classes
years.
at
I
Penn Valley.
completed my associate degree at Penn Valley.
Right,
And
right.
I moved on to UMKC, University of Missouri, Kansas City. Then I got transferred to DeVry University.
Okay, all right. Yeah,
Yeah,
I forgot some of those time minor details
yeah,
about, what everything. I just remember DeVry and you graduating from DeVry. But this is part of the immigrant experience, like where when you come in, especially as a young person, trying to figure out the educational system and where do you start and do your grades matter and how to get things evaluated and what grades, what grade where do you even begin? It can be exhausting and tired for a new person coming in. And so there needs to be I think, a system in place to really kind of just help people do a seamless kind of transfer from coming from overseas, whether it's in the educational system or going on, whether it's high school or younger or going off to college. It can be something kind of a lot of work trying to figure out like where to begin. Because I remember, and later on realizing I could have gone straight on to, I also went to Penn Valley and got grades because I thought that's what I needed to do
yeah. I
to get
was just
credits to get into undergrad. But I could have gone straight into
straight to
undergrad and I didn't
university.
realize
Yeah.
that.
Hmm.
But so it is. None
Yeah,
of it
and
will be
then another
wasted.
thing I just remembered, the way our system back in Jamaica, you know, with the uniform, the organization, like when your teacher would walk in the classroom, doesn't matter how old the person is. If you're 17 years old and you have a 20-year-old teacher, you still have to stand up and say, "Good morning, Miss," or "Good morning, Mister," "Good afternoon, Miss," or "Good afternoon, Mister." Everybody was Mister, Mister. But when I first got here, you know, the children would call the teachers by their first name. So I remember when I went to the school to get registered, you know, everything that the man said, I would say, "Yes, sir, yes, sir." And my aunt started to laugh because the other children does not respond like that. They will be like, "Yes." The adults talk to them and they say, "Yes, yes." There was no Miss or Mister. So when I was like, every response was, "Yes, Miss, yes, sir, yes, sir, yes, sir." She started, you know, she just thought that was funny because that rule is not here for the children to do.
Right, right. And I've had conversations in interviews before where we talk about the fact that manners is just not a big thing here.
Mhm.
And I feel like I go the extra mile when I deal with young people or even with my daughter to make sure that I teach her to say please and thank you or to say good morning and to say and give some sort of deference to people who are older because it's definitely not taught very much here. And that I think manners is something important for kids to learn because it will follow them as they go through life to show respect to people as they interact with others. But I mean, there's another conversation about the history of the United States and why that came to be. But yeah, we'll talk about that another time.
Okay, one other thing I would like to add about buying the home is, you know, as far when it comes to interest rate, buyers do really have the options of buying down the rate. So if they can afford to do so and they don't want to pay a high interest rate, they can buy the points down to whatever they're comfortable to. For anyone who's interested in finding me, I am on Instagram at GNSR_realty, Nadine Johnson underscore, on TikTok at N_Johnson 81.
Say it again, the Instagram say it again, because that was a bit long.
Okay, so for anyone interested in reaching out to me, I have two Instagram page. I have GNSR_realty, I also have as my name as Nadine Johnson_, and you can also reach me through TikTok at N_Johnson 81.
Okay, and we'll put the link for your website, your real estate website in the show notes as well.
Yes.
Okay,
Thank you.
very good.
Thank you.
Join us again next time for part 2 of this episode. We thank our listeners around the world, and we appreciate your continued support as we build our human library. Please remember to give us a 5-star review, subscribe, and share with your friends, family, and circle of influence.